Hello everyone, welcome to LolKing's Pick of the Week. My name is Chakras, and each week we'll be highlighting a champion that we think is really strong in the current meta, whether its popularity comes from ranked games, competitive play, or even both. Today we take a look at Lux, played in the mid lane. Lux has been slowly creeping back into pro play, and in solo queue she's currently the highest win rate in mid lane, boasting an impressive 53.5% win rate. The reason why she's so popular right now is due to a multitude of factors. The lack of purchasable green wards means the map is likely to be less warded, and Lux excels at picking off opponents from the fog of war. She has a relatively safe laning phase and good wave clear with Lucent Singularity and Final Spark. Aside from this, she is one of the best Frost Queen's Claim users, as not only can she proc the item easily to gain gold, but she can also use the active to scout and avoid ganks, or simply to make landing her combo a bit easier. Let's start with Lux's setup in the mid lane. For runes, you want to run magic penetration marks, health per level seals, 6 cooldown per level and 3 magic resistance glyphs, and ability power quintessences. Now, the setup you run will depend on each game. 6 scaling cooldown glyphs will give you that 10% cooldown at level 18, which is enough if you go for 2 cooldown items on your build that will give you the remaining 30%. However, there are other options. You can run armor seals if you're against pesky assassins like Zed or Talon, or just run full magic resistance on your blues if you're afraid you'll be too pressured in lane by an AP champion. For masteries, you want the typical 12-18-0 for mages. Thunderlords gives you the extra oomph of burst to ensure that you can kill targets, so it should be your keystone of choice. For items, and as with most AP mid laners, you want to start with Doran's Ring and 2 potions, but you can also start with Dark Seal, as you'll be able to go for an extra potion for added sustain. As for your core items, in the previous patch you would see a lot of Lux players opting for Frost Queen's Claim, and sometimes a Morellonomicon on top of that as well. With the recent reduced costs on both Athenes and Morellonomicon, there are now better options for mages again. Usually, if you go for Athenes, you won't have to supplement it with any other mana regen item, whereas if you go for Frost Queens, you might want to add a Morellonomicon for extra cooldown reduction and mana regen. Your boots should mostly be a choice between Ionian Boots of Lucidity and Sorcerer's Shoes, depending on how much CDR you already have in your build. After that, Death Cap and Void Staff should always be a part of Lux's build, as they're essentially for a mage like her, providing her large chunks of ability power and percentage magic penetration. There are a lot of situational items for Lux. Luden's is great if you want the extra wave clear and movement speed, while items like Zhonya's and Abyssal are good defensive items when you feel that someone might be diving the back line to kill you. Lichbane is mostly a luxury item that allows you to destroy people with short ability plus basic attack combos, but it's very rare for a Lux to be in range for her auto attacks late game. Now that we've looked at Lux's setup, let's talk a bit about how she works in different stages of the game. In the early game, you want to play mostly safe while looking for opportunities to poke your lane opponent with your E. Remember to always try to weave in a basic attack when your passive is active on an enemy, so you can do extra damage to him. Use the cliffs behind mid lane to throw out skill shots from the fog of war to hit your enemies. They'll have less time to react, so they'll be a bit easier to hit. By mid game, you should be looking to pick off opponents using your devastating combo. In order to do this, vision control is important. Blue Trinket is also extremely helpful if you want to scout for opponents. Roaming is definitely something Lux can do very well, from just going to another lane to simply throwing out a Final Spark from a long range in order to finish off a target. Push out your lane and look for opportunities to help your teammates. In the late game and in teamfights, you should always be in the back line behind your beefy front line. The objective is always the same, to land a good light binding on the opponent so you can use that to burst someone, or just aid your teammates so you can start a fight. Positioning is key on Lux, and if you ever get flanked or singled out, you're most likely dead, so stay close to your teammates. Remember that Prismatic Barrier is a very strong shield, so landing it on multiple teammates in a teamfight is incredibly strong and will make a difference between winning and losing said fight. Now finally, let's talk about some tips and tricks for Lux. The number one tip is to remember how to use your passive. In the early stages of the game, this means constantly using your basic attacks to proc the passive after you hit an opponent with an ability. In fights, remember that your ult will proc the passive, so try to land the skill on your opponents before sniping them with your laser. Other than that, when going for a full burst combo, you should always try to go for Q, E, and ult in that order. This guarantees the skills land in a quick succession and don't give your opponent a chance to react. That's going to be all for this week. If you enjoyed this week's video, be sure to leave a like and leave a comment telling us what champion you'd like to see next.